So I'm going to give you a template for actually 4 screens. And I'm going to ask you to think of kind of a fresh idea for an app. Yeah, you know, you might come up with something that already exists. We don't know what everything is that's out there. But I'm going to start by asking you, like, what are some of your favorite apps? Like, what do you go to all the time? Instagram, my favorite. You know, I use it every day, all day. And somebody developed the whole idea that there should be this clearinghouse, this stage where people can share images and inspiration. And so you think about like how that came about. There was a need for it, and somebody thought, okay, well, I could develop that. How do I make this something that, you know, gets wide use? So that's a great example of a problem that somebody thought needed to be solved, and the development process was something very much like this. So if, you know, before you see something that is, you know, real slick and defined, we have to start with, okay, how are we going to make sure that people know what to do? What's the purpose of this app? And who is our audience? And so here's one example. One of the first iPad apps that I became aware of was worked on by a friend of mine who was teaching at Northwestern for Guitar World. And what they developed was something that echoed just one little section in the print magazine. And that was what they called at the back of the book. It was called the Lick of the Day, and or the Lick of the Week, or something like that. And so you would read about a guitarist, and why, you know, they were inspired to write X, Y, or Z. You might see the music. You know, you could probably go to this website and hear it online. And that was really popular, they said, with 14-year-old boys who would sit up in their rooms playing the same thing over and over again as they taught themselves to play guitar. So they kind of had this focused imaginary audience in mind. And they decided that they wanted to put it together in an app. I'm not sure if I've got this in here. Yeah. So the app itself became important because you had the element of video, you had the element of touch, discovery, and surprise. You could watch this guy talk about what he'd written. You could watch it on the fret, and you could slow it down, and you could interact with the screen, all while you've got your guitar with you. So the fact that the keyboard was taken out of the equation, you know, maybe you had sat at a computer before this. This became, I think, one of the most popular apps for the first like 4 or 5 years that iPads were even around. And so it's the interactivity, it's the surprise, it's the ability to share this information. It is all of those elements that made it a really good concept. So as you're thinking about your concept, I'm going to try to encourage you to find focus. Like, Guitar World didn't decide to put everything that they put in the magazine into one app, because that would have been way too much. But they focused just on the idea of learning to play guitar and learning, you know, these specific songs. So finding focus is crucial, because if you put too much into an app, it's not going to be user-friendly, okay? So I've got one more example, and then I'm going to come in and we'll talk about a few ideas that you might hear. So I did this project when I was teaching in Vienna, and one time I had everybody come up with a magazine, and they could choose whatever they wanted it to be about. And one of the students did something that was about entertainment in Vienna and all the different places to, you know, to get good food and hear nice music and go get a beer and have wine and all of the things that made it enjoyable to be there. And then the next part of the assignment was that I had them think about a mobile app. And all of these things that we've talked about, geolocation, touch, interactivity, and surprise, the ability to share, information for the moments between moments, all of those expectations, he put into this app that he did. And I was kind of surprised when he brought me his sketches because he said, okay, for my entertainment magazine, I want this to be about the cemeteries of Vienna. And I said, okay, interesting. Tell me why. And he said, well, you talked about geolocation and people, celebrating and doing things on the go. And he said, the second largest cemetery in all of Europe is in Vienna. And people go there to pay homage to the artists who are buried there, Beethoven and Brahms and Schubert and Gustav Klimt and Egon Schiele. And he said, because of the geolocation factor, I can help people with this app get directly to this finite point. They can listen to music. And so he put all of these things into the element. They can share images about where they are. And he sketched out a really interesting app, keeping all of those things in mind. And it was something I wouldn't have thought about, right? So we talked about, maybe some favorite mobile apps. I'm going to challenge you guys to come up with perhaps an idea for a new app. And then you're going to sketch out kind of like, what would this app be about? What would the first page be like? What would you come to? How would you know what it's about? How would you know what to click on to get to the next element? And once you're there, can you show me like how to get back to the home page if you need to, but also what do you do next? Maybe it's about river raft trips and you want to say where are the best rapids, wherever we live. And maybe that has geolocation based on where you are. Maybe you click on that and it takes you to the best ways to get to the entrances, to put in your canoe or kayak. So keeping that focus, I'm going to have you think through all of these different elements and sketch out 4 pages. Okay. And you want to make sure that, you're not going to, if you were doing this full app, you would sketch out 100 pages or maybe even more, because that's what it takes to develop it. So this is just kind of to get it started. And I want you to focus a little bit. And I've had people sketch out like how to knit a cardigan or like dating apps. I've had people put all sorts of things into this. Think about petfinder.com is an app that I have gone to a lot when I'm looking for a new pet to adopt, right? And so I might say within a 50-mile radius, tell me where there are little schnauzer puppies. That's an app. It's defined enough. And that will tell me which photo, they'll show me a photograph and a little bit more information about the dog and how to get in contact. So thinking through some of these tools, push notification, geolocation, affordances, and some of the other things we've kicked around, those expectations, I'm going to have you do some paper prototyping. I've had people talk about like at work, they work in a restaurant and they really need some way to track who is going to be in the kitchen at any given time or what the schedules are or who you need. So it might be a kind of a personal thing. So I just want you to think through the concept and how those concepts kind of come about in a physical way. It doesn't have to be absolutely groundbreaking. My one guidance to you guys is that you need to make your problem narrow. Like the best way to develop an app is to have, like it solves this little problem.